What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for NFL Week 15 Tuesday Night Football.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon.
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top DFS picks for tonight's two-game slate between the LA Rams and the Seattle Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Football Team. So you can use these picks on the two-game slate that we have tonight or on each individual Showdown slate. So let's get into it.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay guys, let's take a look at the quarterback position. So actually, I think all three of these quarterbacks are playable, but I will give you my favorite pick on the slate to start with. The guy that I'm going to play in most of my lineups is Matthew Stafford from the LA Rams playing the Seattle Seahawks, who have the 7th worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing quarterbacks. Matthew Stafford has averaged 23.4 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 1.9 rush attempts per game. He's projected at 23.3 fantasy points here tonight, and he's 6,700 DraftKings salary and 1,800 more on FanDuel. Now, Matthew Stafford, he scored 24, 24, and 27 fantasy points in his last 3 games, so he's been on fire. Vegas thinks there's going to be 46 points scored in this game, with the Rams favored by 7. Pretty good matchup here, so I like Matthew Stafford here versus the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, now the quarterback on the slate with the best matchup is Jalen Hurts from the Philadelphia Eagles playing the Washington Football Team, who have the 5th worst defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts has averaged 22.5 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 10.2 rush attempts per game. He's projected at 20.5 fantasy points here tonight, and he's 6,500 DraftKings salary, 1,700 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 42 points scored in this game, with the Eagles favored by 6.5. So Jalen Hurts, he was out last week with an injury. He's going to be back here this week. Now, I hope he's not going to be limited or hindered in any way, so just keep an eye out on the injury news. Make sure that he's going to be a full go, but when he's getting 10 rush attempts per game, that gives him an awfully big floor for a fantasy quarterback, and he has a fantastic matchup here tonight. So if he is fully healthy and good to go, he could be the top quarterback on the slate here tonight if he does get his season average in rush attempts. So this guy's got some pretty monster upside, especially in this matchup. So I like Jalen Hurts here versus the Washington Football Team. Okay, another quarterback that I like on this slate doesn't have as good of a matchup as the other two. He's a little bit less expensive as well, but his upside is pretty much up there with the rest of them. So I like Russell Wilson from the Seattle Seahawks playing the LA Rams, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They've been pretty good versus opposing quarterbacks, and Russell Wilson has averaged 17.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 3.1 rush attempts per game. He's projected at 17.3 fantasy points here tonight. He's 6,100 DraftKings salary, 1,400 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 46 points scored in this game, with the Seahawks trailing by 7. So it could be a passing game script for Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. And he's played pretty well the past 3 games, scoring 21, 18, and 20 fantasy points. Now, I think it's going to be kind of hard for me to fit Russell Wilson in my lineup over Jalen Hurts or Matthew Stafford, but I will have a Russell Wilson lineup, so I like Russell Wilson here versus the LA Rams. Okay, now the least expensive quarterback on the slate. This is a wild card here tonight. It's Garrett Gilbert from the Washington football team playing the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing quarterbacks. Now, he's only $4,800 DraftKings salary, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 42 points scored in this game, with the Washington football team trailing by 6.5. So I think we can expect a passing game script here for Garrett Gilbert as they fall behind the Philadelphia Eagles. So I like, I wouldn't say I like Garrett Gilbert, but I think he is an interesting pick here at a low salary quarterback to save some salary, stack the rest of your lineup with studs, and if he can throw a couple touchdowns and surprise some people, he could find himself in the winning lineup here. But trust me, I'm only going to have probably one lineup maximum, just as a hedge against the other quarterbacks on the slate, just in case Garrett Gilbert goes out there and surprises people. So take a look at Garrett Gilbert as a high-risk, high-reward play here versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, let's take a look at the running back position. Now, I said it was going to be a passing game script for the Washington football team, but I do think they are going to run the ball quite a bit early in the game before they fall behind and are forced to pass the ball. So I like Antonio Gibson from the Washington football team playing the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing running backs. Antonio Gibson has averaged 14 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 16.6 rush attempts per game and 2.9 pass targets per game. Now, J.D. McKissick is out once again, so Antonio Gibson's going to be the workhorse back. He's projected at 14.4 fantasy points here tonight. He's $6,800 DraftKings salary, $600 more on FanDuel. He is my favorite running back on the slate. I think he's got the most upside, and I think he's going to get a ton of work here tonight. And I think he's going to get a bunch of passes out of the backfield as well. So I think there's a lot of fantasy upside with this pick here tonight. Vegas thinks there's going to be 42 points scored in this game, with the football team trailing by 6.5. And Antonio Gibson has scored 5, 22, and 27 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 10, 23, and 29 rush attempts on top of 2, 6, and 7 pass targets. So I am expecting 20 to 30 touches here tonight from Antonio Gibson. So I like Antonio Gibson here versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, now for the LA Rams, kind of torn on this running back situation because I'm not a big fan of Sony Michel, but he does have a fantastic matchup here versus the Seattle Seahawks, who give up the second most fantasy points to opposing running backs. But the other thing that's kind of making me think twice here is Darrell Henderson Jr. is activated, and he could play a role here tonight. He could take away some of that some of those rush attempts from Sony Michel. So I like Sony Michel if he's going to get 25 rush attempts. I don't like him so much if he's going to get 10 or 12 rush attempts. So I might just stay away from the running backs for the LA Rams, even though that could come back to bite me because they do have a great matchup here. So if you want to play a running back from the Rams, Sony Michel is $5,800 DraftKings salary, $1,200 more on FanDuel. Darrell Henderson Jr. is $5,500 DraftKings salary, $1,500 more on FanDuel. I think it's going to be hard to pick the guy that performs here tonight if they both play. So I'm going to stay away from that. But the other running back that I like, although he has not played well throughout the season, take a look at Miles Sanders from the Philadelphia Eagles playing the Washington football team, who have the 5th worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing running backs. Miles Sanders, he's only averaged 9.9 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 11.2 rush attempts per game and 2.9 pass targets per game. But he scored 20 fantasy points last game, got 24 rush attempts and 3 pass targets. So maybe he sees that extra volume here again tonight, and he's projected at 12.3 fantasy points. He's 5,700 DraftKings salary, 1,000 more on FanDuel. Vegas thinks there's going to be 42 points scored in this game, with the Eagles favored by 6.5. Now, I can see the Eagles getting ahead in this game, especially against that inexperienced quarterback. So I could see Miles Sanders getting a lot of work in this one. So I think I'm going to be keen on Miles Sanders and Antonio Gibson. Then I got one more running back that I like on the slate. But I like Miles Sanders here versus the Washington football team.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all the tools for NFL. NBA is right around the corner. This is a great time to get in and try everything for 1 month. The tools are all about saving research time. You can see the last 3 games, the fantasy points per game, the targets they got per game, so you can see how involved they are in the offense, the rushes they got per game. Seeing all this stuff on one screen helps you save time and make better picks. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, so the other running back on the slate that I'm looking at is Rashaad Penny from the Seattle Seahawks playing the LA Rams, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending the running back position. And Rashaad Penny, he scored 30 fantasy points off of 16 rush attempts and 1 pass target last game. He's projected at 10.1 fantasy points here tonight. He's 5,400 DraftKings salary, 1,000 more on FanDuel. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 46 points scored in this game, with the Seahawks trailing by 7. Now, I just think this is an interesting pick because Rashaad Penny, he got his opportunity last week to earn those touches, and wow, did he perform. So I think he's going to get plenty of opportunity here tonight. So if he gets rolling once again, he could be another big 20 plus fantasy point game here at only 5,400 DraftKings salary. So I like Rashaad Penny here versus the LA Rams. Okay, let's take a look at the wide receiver position. So the stud on the slate is Cooper Kupp from the LA Rams playing the Seattle Seahawks, who have the 7th worst defense overall. And they've been pretty good against opposing wide receivers, but Cooper Kupp has averaged 27.7 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 11.6 rush attempts per game. He's been on the field for 93% of the snaps, just been an absolute beast this year, and he's projected at 27.1 fantasy points here tonight. He's 8,800 DraftKings salary, 700 more on FanDuel. Cooper Kupp has scored 34, 30, and 19 fantasy points in the last 3 games, off of 15, 10, and 10 pass targets. So, not much to say about Cooper Kupp. He's a stud. Get him in your lineup. So I like Cooper Kupp here versus the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, another wide receiver that I like here tonight. He's been battling injury, but I think he is finally close to full strength. So I like DK Metcalf from the Seattle Seahawks playing the LA Rams, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing wide receivers. DK Metcalf has averaged 14 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 7.1 rush attempts targets per game. He's projected at 15.4 fantasy points here tonight. and he's 6,400 DraftKings salary, 1,100 more on FanDuel. Let's just take a look at the injury report. Yes, Tyler Lockett is out, so that's going to open up extra pass targets for DK Metcalf. He scored 8, 11, and 2 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 8, and 4 pass targets. So I think he's got a lot of upside here tonight, despite not playing well through that injury. I think he does get a ton of pass targets here tonight, and I think he's going to be a good play. So I like DK Metcalf here versus the LA Rams. Okay, now if you want to save some salary at the wide receiver position, take a look at Van Jefferson from the LA Rams playing the Seattle Seahawks. Van Jefferson has averaged 11.2 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 5.6 pass targets per game. He's projected at 12.7 fantasy points here tonight. He's 5,400 DraftKings salary, 1,000 more on FanDuel, and Van Jefferson has scored 15, 16, and 18 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing off of 3, 8, and 9 pass targets. So I like Van Jefferson here versus the Seattle Seahawks. Now for the LA Rams, I also like Odell Beckham Jr. And he's averaged 9.5 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 5.9 pass targets per game. But take a look at his last 3 games. He scored 20, 11, and 19 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 7, 5, and 10 pass targets. So he's getting good volume, he's been productive, he's been catching touchdown passes, and he's projected at 13.4 fantasy points here tonight, and he's only 4,900 DraftKings salary, 1,600 more on FanDuel. So I think that makes Odell Beckham Jr. one of my favorite wide receivers on this slate. I think a Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr., and Matthew Stafford stack is looking pretty good. So I like Odell Beckham Jr. here versus the Seattle Seahawks. Okay, now let's not forget about Terry McLaurin. Although with that new quarterback in there, it's going to be tough to play Terry McLaurin. You just don't know how he's going to perform and how much time he's had on the field with that quarterback. So Terry McLaurin is averaging 14.2 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 8.2 pass targets per game. He's on the field for 90% of the snaps. He's projected at 13.8 fantasy points here tonight. He's 6,500 DraftKings salary, 800 more on FanDuel. Hasn't played well the past 3 games, scored 0, 5, and 9 fantasy points in the last 3 games off of 4, 5, and 7 pass targets. Now, I probably am not going to play Terry McLaurin here tonight. That's just me. I'm not going to risk it with the quarterback. So I'm going to stay away from Terry McLaurin here versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, if I were to go with a wide receiver from the Washington football team, I think it would be one of these low salary wide receivers, a guy like Adam Humphries or DeAndre Carter, who's only 3,800 for Adam Humphries and 3,600 for DeAndre Carter. They're both going to get some pass targets in this game, so they could be the value play that you're looking for to save some salary in your lineup. But I do think there's better options here on the slate. But not in terms of value plays at the wide receiver position. I think those guys like Adam Humphries, he got 7 pass targets last game, 5 pass targets the game before that, and DeAndre Carter got 5 pass targets last game. So those guys are going to get the ball. Just questionable to see, how much they're going to be targeted and how productive they can be with that new quarterback. But they probably will be throwing a lot of passes in this game since they're going to fall behind. So I do think Adam Humphries and DeAndre Carter could make interesting value plays here versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, let's take a look at the tight end position. I like Dallas Goedert from the Philadelphia Eagles playing the Washington football team, who have the 5th worst defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing tight ends. Dallas Goedert has averaged 10.8 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 4.7 pass targets per game. He's projected at 11.4 fantasy points here tonight. He's 4,900 DraftKings salary, and he scored 32 fantasy points off of 6 pass targets last game. I think his salary is pretty low here, and he's got a decent matchup, and he's got a lot of upside. So I like Dallas Goedert here versus the Washington football team. Okay, now speaking of value plays, I think one of the best value plays on this slate is Gerald Everett from the Seattle Seahawks playing the LA Rams, who have a middle of the pack defense overall. They're middle of the pack defending opposing tight ends. Gerald Everett has averaged 7.6 fantasy points per game on the season, getting an average of 4.2 pass targets per game. But with no Tyler Lockett, I am expecting more pass targets here for Gerald Everett. He's projected at 7.6 fantasy points here tonight. He's only 3,600 DraftKings salary, 1,500 more on FanDuel. And we know Vegas thinks that the Seahawks are going to be trailing by 7 in this game, so it could turn into a passing game script. He could get a bunch of pass targets in this one, so he is my favorite value play on the slate. So I like Gerald Everett here versus the LA Rams.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NFL slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.